If an incumbent firm started panicking about every new technology that came along, most of the time that panic would be for no real reason. The problem is that the incumbent firm is actually not the right firm to take it forward. It may be because they're already serving their current customers well, and to divert this new technology would involve sacrificing that.
Disruption sounds glamorous until you're the one being disrupted. Our guest today doesn't just talk about innovation, he studies the economics that decides who wins, who survives, and who quietly disappear. Welcome to another episode of School to Startup, brought to you by Tracxn, a private market intelligence platform that's been supporting the global university ecosystem for over 12 years. Through our university partnerships, we work with institutions driving innovation and entrepreneurship, and this series highlights the academic leaders making that happen. I'm Harish, your host today, and joining us is Professor Joshua, Jeffrey Skoll Chair in Technical Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and Professor of Strategic Management at Rotman School of Management, University of Toronto. Joshua, great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
Great. This might be a dangerous question. You have written extensively about disruption and innovation. If Clayton Christensen and a venture capitalist walked into a bar, who would understand disruption better, the theorist or the term sheet writer?
I think actually, in many respects, Clay Christensen had pointed out some very interesting things about how innovation competition occurs. But ultimately, I think that his attempts to see everything through that lens led to all sorts of blind spots. And I think that in reality, very few people, while they're inspired by him, actually follow the prescriptions that he said.
On a more serious note, how did you personally end up studying the economics of innovation? Was this always direction, or did innovation slowly disrupt your own career path?
It was something that I was interested from the very start. Before I even did a PhD. One of the reasons that I went and did a PhD at Stanford was that it had a very deep bench in terms of people who had contributed to the economics of innovation. There was Ken Arrow, who wrote the seminal article on this in 1962, was there. Joe Stiglitz, who had researched quite a bit of this, and then there were these historians such as Nathan Rosenberg and Paul David, who had really studied the economics of innovation. So this has always been something of great interest to me.
Very interesting. Before we go deeper, this is for our viewers. If you're enjoying this conversation with global academic leaders shaping entrepreneurship, do hit like, comment, subscribe, and click the bell icon on the Tracxn YouTube channel. We bring you insights straight from the minds of who are shaping the innovation ecosystem worldwide. All right, so back to disruption. Large firms often say they love innovation, but the minute it threatens existing revenue, they panic. Is there actually a strategic way for established companies to embrace disruption without accidentally killing it?
Well, I think one of the issues that large companies face is that while technologies exist that may end up posing an existential threat to them, the vast majority of them are not that. So if an incumbent firm started panicking about every new technology that came along, most of the time that panic would be for no real reason. And even for these technologies where there is a real issue associated with it, the problem is that the incumbent firm, this is the challenge that they face, is actually not the right firm to take it forward. It may be because they're already serving their current customers well, and to divert this new technology would involve sacrificing that. Or more importantly, they've set up their organizations to innovate based on the existing technology. And so if they suddenly try to do something on the new technology while keeping their foot in the existing one, that's like worse for all comers. So the only real way a company can sort of survive disruption is by sacrificing things all the time and becoming more flexible all the time. If they're trying to be the market leader at any given time, that usually involves sacrificing what we'll call the option value to keep going in the face of disruptive technology. So that was the dilemma that I put out in my book now. It's now 10 years old, called The Disruption Dilemma. That the real dilemma companies face is, are they going to try and be the market leader, or which can earn lots of profits, but for a lesser time, or are they going to try and be sustainable throughout successive waves, which invariably involves them not being the market leader at all, but they last longer. And both plans can give the same value to shareholders technically, but they're different ways of approaching things.
Very interesting. So you work closely with entrepreneurial ecosystems, right? So what's the biggest difference between a professor who studies entrepreneurship and a professor who actually becomes an entrepreneur? Is it incentives, mindset, or ego?
Well, for most of my career, I was the professor who studied entrepreneurship, and basically, what I discovered in that was that you can't study entrepreneurship without being amongst entrepreneurs. They have perspectives and other things that are critically important and are critically important to listen to. And so that was one of the reasons why my research, I now think, resonates with entrepreneurs, is because I had a deeper understanding of what sort of trade-offs and real things they were taking, as opposed to what might have emerged from the ivory tower alone. And obviously now in the last two years, I've formed my own startup company. So not just advising, but actually doing it for an AI teaching assistant, and it's called All Day TA. And that's been an interesting experience as well. Interestingly enough, I have not learned as much from that experience as I did from interacting with the entrepreneurs for the past almost 15 years now. In fact, if anything, I've learned from my startup experience that where we ended up, and I've got this textbook here, Entrepreneurship, Choice and Strategy, turned out to be exactly right. These were the issues that we faced as a startup. These are the choices we had to make. If anything, the startup experience showed me how hard it is to make the really considered choices, because you are constantly pushed towards easier paths that are right in front of you. For instance, I'm supposed to think about selling my product to all manner of professors, but in the end, where are all our initial customers? Well, they're business school professors or economics professors. So who know us, they're embedded into our network, even though there's no reason why that should be the case. Well, there's a little bit of reason. The fact that we're doing it is a bit of the case, but nonetheless, it's not what I would have told somebody who came to me and asked for my advice on this thing. So you end up being pushed towards some of these bird in the hand type issues. And so that's interesting to me, how that occurred. But other than that, the main trade-offs and the main issues and the main challenges were all as we set out. And the prescriptions we're following are what was in the textbook, even though I was not approaching this expecting that to happen.
Very interesting. So, zooming back to universities reward publications and markets reward traction. So, if you could redesign university incentive systems tomorrow to encourage the entrepreneurship, what would you change first?
I think it's quite a challenging thing. Uh, in reality, what I would like to do is double down on the sort of teaching experiences we've been doing thus far. So here at Rotman, we are, part of the Creative Destruction Lab network, which started here and now is spread to 15 sites worldwide. And one of the hallmarks of that for the past decade or more has been having a course built around that development program, where students actually get to work with startups for a whole year and do assignments based on them and help them in their businesses and all of that sort of stuff. And I think that's extremely useful way of learning. It provides a really great sense for students of ownership of the decisions that are made, rather than sitting back beside and sort of thinking themselves as like a consultant or investment banker, but understanding what it means to own a decision being made. And that's at the forefront of innovation and all manner of business decisions. And so I would like to have more of that occurring. More of the curriculum based around that, not just our entrepreneurship course, but other things as well. That would be my desire. And I think that could be a very interesting degree that's related to an MBA, but different from an MBA because it focuses on ownership of decisions.
Very interesting. So, from your research on market signaling, early stage founders coming out of universities often struggle with credibility. So, what's one thing academic founders consistently get wrong when trying to signal value to investors or partners?
Oh, I think the issue that academic founders have is not so much that they get things wrong. I think they're actually keenly aware of their lack of knowledge of how to take innovations and build businesses and things like that. The challenge that they face is that the markets that they have for the business judgment to help them, are very thin. They're almost non-existent. They'll occasionally meet somebody who thinks they know about business and they'll listen to them, but they have no way of sorting on quality. When you happen to be in Silicon Valley, there's a lot of people who know each other, and you can get a lot of different advice and different opinions and understand the network a bit more, so you get a better sense of what you should be doing as an academic founder. And so the entire idea behind the Creative Destruction Lab was to bring that sort of ecosystem and market for judgment to other places in the world, and basically that's what it does. It provides years worth of constant, continual, regular cadence mentoring by people we have vetted for their quality in terms of judgment, and you basically get a more intense ecosystem experience. In fact, it's much easier to navigate than Silicon Valley. It's more long term. It's more focused and things like that. So, my advice to academic entrepreneurs is to look at the Creative Destruction Lab and see if you can join it for a year, so that you can get your businesses on track.
Very interesting. I'm very much curious. Have you seen brilliant ideas fail simply because the world wasn't ready?
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of those. There are great ideas that occur, but there are things that have to happen for them. I mean, one of the earliest ones was Blockbuster Video tried to launch video on demand, but it did so in the early 2000s where there wasn't enough broadband. So it was just impossible to launch that sort of business at that time. So there are a lot of these ideas that have that issue of timing. I think more to the point that the brilliant ideas really, there are a lot of things that have to happen for the entrepreneur who's come up with that brilliant idea to be the same person who profits from it. And there's just like a set of things that have to fall into line for that to occur. And I have seen situations where that has been decoupled literally at the last minute, after raising a lot of money, everything like that in the entrepreneur. An error occurs, or a bad timing occurs, or a trade war occurs, or something like that, that ends up falling on the entrepreneur for that, and so they don't end up profiting from it. So I think in the end, um, um, I think brilliant ideas, it's not so much that they're time. I think the issue is that there are a lot of things that have to happen. Sometimes it happens that they can't happen at that particular time because there's some missing piece. Hopefully you can sort of anticipate that before spending too much time on it, which is one of the goals of good entrepreneurial mentoring, is to know when to stop, when to quit. But the other part is that it can just take a time for these things to occur. There are lots of pressures for things to happen quickly, and invariably, sometimes the world doesn't move quickly enough. You need to have patience. I've learned that in our own startup. We have what we think is a compelling product, but we're dealing with selling to universities that are a slow-moving beast. And thinking about that, I realized that it's just not compatible with a very quick scale up or anything like that. You have to be patient, and you have to get the resources in line in order to be able to do that, to be patient, which is complicated.
Right. Very interesting. You might have told this multiple times. Uh, for young academics and the first-time founders navigating innovation today, what's one mental model you wish they adopted earlier?
I don't I don't think there's a single model. I think the tough part that any founder has is separating out the true idea they have from the many, many different ways that they could commercialize that idea. And so I just think that that exercise. So people come up with an idea and then they say it's like Uber for dog grooming. But that's conflating both the idea, which is maybe we can have some mobile service for dog grooming to fix a gap in the market, versus having it as a full Uber-like model, real-time pricing and all sorts of things. And so, you tend to wed those things together, which stops you from seeing lots of options that might be available for different customer segments or different technological designs that would complement that. So different ways of going. And so, again, in our company, we developed this AITA for courses, university courses. But interestingly enough, it's not that far from those towards corporate trading. But it's a very different market, not a market that we know as much about. But knowing that that is an option helps us think about, what we're doing in the back end to give us the opportunity to experiment with some of those different parts.
Very interesting. Joshua, let's do a quick rapid fire before we wrap. What do you think when I say disruption? Is it a buzzword or a breakthrough?
It's a buzzword.
How about patents, moat or marketing tool?
Patents are overrated. I think they can be very important in some industries, but they're very costly to enforce.
And Silicon Valley, unique or replicable?
I think historically it's pretty unique. I think we can replicate some parts of it, as I said, some of the things from it, but it's a phenomenon in and of itself.
So one book every founder should read.
Well, I mean, there's a few things. Obviously, I'm going to say Entrepreneurship, Choice, and Strategy. I can't not say that. I truly believe every founder should read that book. I think other than that, I think a useful book to read is The Lean Startup by Eric Ries.
Interesting. One thing universities consistently get wrong about entrepreneurship.
Oh, that they think they can do it.
Great. Joshua, this has been a fascinating conversation. Today, we unpacked what disruption really means, why incentives shape innovation more than ideas do, and how universities can better prepare founders for real market work. Right. So, for those who want to explore more of Joshua's work, you can check out his books, including The Disruption Dilemma, Production Machines, and Power and Production, available online and through major bookstores. Professor Joshua, thank you so much for being part of this episode. And to our viewers, if you found this valuable, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you never miss an episode. We'll see you in the next one.